If your grocery store suddenly shut down for a month, honestly, how long would your garden keep you fed? Most people don't even think about that until it's too late. But imagine walking out to your backyard or even your balcony and realizing you've actually got everything you need right there. Real food, real calories, the kind that fills your belly, not just decorates your plate. Today we're talking about 15 survival crops that pack serious energy. I'm talking about those heavy hitters that could literally keep you alive when everything else runs out. And before you roll your eyes, no, it's not just potatoes. You'd be surprised which plants are secretly doing all the heavy lifting when it comes to keeping you full. Some of them you've probably walked past at the market 100 times without realizing how powerful they are. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to grow if you ever want your garden to feed you, not just feed your hobby. Welcome back to SereneGreen Gardens. Around here, we don't waste money, we grow smarter. If you love easy gardening ideas that actually feed your family, hit subscribe and join our growing garden tribe. Here's the thing. Calories matter way more than most people think. When times get tough, it's not about how fancy your garden looks. It's about how much energy it can give you. Because let's be real, when food gets scarce, energy equals survival. A lot of us focus on the fun stuff, tomatoes, herbs, all those bright little greens. But those don't exactly keep you full when you've been working all day or when the pantry's running low. You can't live off salads when things get real. See, a single head of lettuce might look pretty, but it's basically crunchy water. Compare that to a patch of potatoes, and suddenly you're talking meals that stick to your ribs, the difference between snacking and surviving. And that's the point of this video. We're not just planting for beauty or bragging rights anymore. We're planting for strength, for calories, for long-term food security. Because when your garden can actually feed you, that's when you know you're growing smart. All right, let's get into the real stuff, the crops that actually keep you going. We're starting with the king himself, potatoes. Now, I know you've heard it before, but hear me out. Potatoes are one of the few crops that can practically keep a person alive on their own. They've got the calories, they've got the nutrients, and they don't ask for much. You give them a patch of soil, some water, and a bit of sunlight, and they'll pay you back in full meals. You can roast them, mash them, fry them, store them for months. Honestly, if you've got a steady potato bed, you're halfway to food security. And the best part? They're forgiving. You can plant them late, miss a few waterings, even get a surprise cold snap, and they'll still push through. It's like the plant version of that friend who never complains but always shows up. Now, once you've got potatoes down, their cousin steps in, the sweet potato. And this one's the warm weather hero. While regular potatoes like things cool, sweet potatoes thrive when it's hot enough to make you sweat. They're full of fiber, vitamins, and just enough natural sweetness to make them feel like comfort food. Here's the kicker. They grow like a creeping vine. So while the roots are fattening up underground, those leaves above are edible too. Yep, you can cook the greens like spinach. That means one plant gives you two foods for the price of one. Energy below the soil and nutrition above it. They also store beautifully. Harvest them, cure them for a week or two in a warm spot, and you've got a stash that lasts for months without losing flavor. They're one of those crops that quietly does the work while everyone else is showing off their tomatoes. So between your regular potatoes and your sweet ones, you've already got a survival foundation. Cool season backup, warm season backup. Both easy to grow, both high in calories, both dependable no matter what happens. And honestly, if every garden in America just had these two, food insecurity would look a whole lot different. But we're just getting started because there are 13 more crops that make this list for a reason. Next up, let's talk about corn, the tall, golden giant that's more than just fairground food. Corn is one of those crops that truly earns its spot in a survival garden. It grows tall, looks proud, and gives you a high yield for the space it takes. You can plant a small patch and still pull in buckets of food by the end of the season. Each ear is basically packed energy. A single cup of corns give you over 350 calories, which means if you grow enough corn, you're stacking serious energy on your shelves. And it's not just about eating it fresh off the cob, though let's be honest, nothing tastes better than that. You can dry it and grind it into cornmeal, turn it into grits, tortillas, or even popcorn. And here's why I call corn a storage champion. Once you dry it properly, it can last for years if you keep it away from moisture. That's long-term security sitting in a mason jar. And if you rotate your corn patch each year, it'll keep producing strong with very little fuss. Now, it does like space and sun, so if you've got a sunny spot that's just sitting there doing nothing, corn's your crop. Plus, if you plant it beside beans, the two help each other out. Which brings us perfectly to the next one.
Pinto beans. Now, these little powerhouses don't get enough credit. Everybody's out here chasing fancy superfoods, but pintos have been quietly feeding entire civilizations for generations. 1 cup of dried pinto beans packs over 600 calories. That's serious survival fuel right there. They're simple to grow, give them warmth, sunlight, and decent soil, and they'll reward you with pods full of tiny energy bombs. And once they dry, you can store them for what feels like forever. They just sit patiently waiting for the day you need them. Dried beans are practically immortal if you keep them in a cool, dry place. And here's something else people forget. Beans fix nitrogen in the soil. That means while they're feeding you, they're also enriching the ground for your next crop. They literally make your garden better just by being there. You can eat them fresh, dry them, can them, or even replant from what you harvest next year. And the flavor? Comforting, filling, and familiar. You could live on rice and beans for months and still feel satisfied, especially when the beans are homegrown. So when you think about corn and pinto beans together, you've got a dynamic duo. One brings the carbs, the other brings the protein. Both give you calories that count. It's the kind of pairing that turns a backyard into a backup pantry. All right, next on the list is wheat. And before you thinking that's for farmers with tractors, hear me out. You absolutely can grow wheat in a small backyard. You don't need a field the size of Texas. A modest patch, say the size of a small parking space, can still give you enough to grind into flour for baking your own bread, pancakes, or even homemade pasta if you're feeling fancy. The best thing about wheat is how little it asks from you. Once you sow it, it just minds its business. You don't need to babysit it every day. Give it decent soil, some sunlight, and a few months, and you'll be surprised how easy it is to harvest. And when you think long-term survival, flour is one of those foods that can carry you through almost anything. It's versatile, easy to store, and can turn into dozens of meals. Growing even a little wheat gives you independence, the kind that feels really good when you pull out a loaf of bread and know you grew the grain that made it. Now, if wheat gives you your carbs, soybeans give you the perfect balance. Calories and protein. I like to call soybeans the vegetarian's survival steak. They're loaded with energy and one of the few plant sources that give you complete protein, meaning all the essential amino acids your body needs. That's rare in plants. Soybeans are sturdy too. Once they're in the ground, they handle a lot. Hot weather, poor soil, even a bit of neglect. They just keep producing. And when you harvest them, you can eat them green as edamame or let them dry and store them for months. They make great milk, tofu, flour, or you can just roast them for snacks. Plus, like other beans, they feed the soil while they grow. So the more soy you plant, the healthier your garden becomes. It's the crop that pays you twice, once in food, once in soil health. And then there's sunflowers. Now, I love these not just because they're cheerful and turn your garden into something straight out of a painting, but because those seeds? Absolute calorie bombs. A single cup of sunflower seeds packs around 270 calories, most of it from good, healthy fats that keep you full and give you lasting energy. They grow fast, they're easy to care for, and they make you smile every time you walk by. But underneath that beauty, they're a survival beast. You can eat the seeds raw, roasted, or press them for oil. That means even in tough times, you've got your own supply of cooking oil. How many home gardens can say that? Sunflowers also pull double duty in your ecosystem. They attract pollinators, help loosen compacted soil with their deep roots, and when they're done, you can dry the heads for seed next year. It's nature's version of a renewable pantry, pretty, powerful, and practical, all at once. So if you've got space for these three, wheat for your carbs, soybeans for your protein, and sunflowers for your fats, you've basically covered the entire survival triangle of nutrition. That's not just gardening, that's strategy. Now let's talk about one of the ancient greats, quinoa. This tiny seed has been feeding people for thousands of years, and for good reason. It's high in protein, gluten-free, and packed with calories that actually keep you going. One cup gives you around 370 calories, which might not sound like much until you realize how light the seeds are. It's like concentrated fuel for your body. What makes quinoa special is how adaptable it is. It loves cool weather, high places, and soil that drains well. So if you're in a cooler region where tropical crops struggle, quinoa is your best friend. It's not hard to grow either. You plant it once, give it space to breathe, and let it do its thing. When the leaves start to fall off, that's your cue. It's harvest time. And I'll be honest, there's something satisfying about watching those seed heads dry out, knowing each one is basically a bowl of healthy energy waiting to be cooked. When you rinse and boil those seeds, you're eating the same food ancient warriors survived on in the Andes. That's history and nutrition working hand in hand. Next up is amaranth, quinoa's hot weather cousin. If quinoa likes the mountains, amaranth loves the sunshine. This plant grows almost anywhere. It's one of those crops that laughs in the face of poor soil. People sometimes mistake it for a weed because of how fast it takes over, but that's exactly why it's a survival essential.
Every part of it is useful. The leaves are rich in iron and vitamins. You can cook them like spinach, and the seeds? Tiny, but mighty. They've got calories, protein, and fiber, and they come in huge quantities. One plant gives you thousands of seeds. And the flavor? A little nutty, a little earthy, really comforting once you get used to it. Amaranth's one of those quiet heroes in a garden. It doesn't demand attention, but it rewards you like no other. And because it's drought tolerant, it's perfect for anyone in warmer or unpredictable climates. So if you want something that practically grows itself and feeds you for months, this one's your guy. Now let's move to something a little different, but equally powerful, avocado. This one's not a grain or a root, but it deserves a spot because it's a calorie powerhouse. One avocado can pack close to 370 calories, loaded with healthy fats, fiber, and nutrients that keep you full for hours. If you live in a warm zone, this is one of the smartest plants you can have in your garden. It's basically nature's butter, rich, smooth, and endlessly versatile. Slice it, mash it, spread it, or blend it, it fits in any meal. And the best part? Once an avocado tree starts producing, it just keeps giving year after year. You're not just planting food, you're planting a long-term asset. Sure, it takes patience to get it going, but when you see those green fruits hanging from your own tree, that patience pays off big time. Even if your climate's cooler, you can still make it work. Grow it in a large pot, bring it indoors during winter, and it'll still reward you. It's the kind of crop that turns your garden from cute hobby to personal food fortress. So between quinoa for your protein and energy, amaranth for resilience and yield, and avocado for healthy fats, you've got the perfect trio that feeds your body, sustains your strength, and keeps your garden thriving across different climates. All right, now we're heading into the underdogs of the survival garden, the ones most people overlook, but will absolutely save the day when it counts. Let's start with the Jerusalem artichoke. This one's kind of the hidden treasure of the tuber world. Some folks call it sunchoke, and it's not actually related to regular artichokes. It's more like a cousin to the sunflower. What makes it special is how ridiculously easy it is to grow. You plant it once, and it basically takes care of itself. The tubers grow underground, storing up calories quietly, while the tall stalks wave around above. You can harvest them in the fall, or even let them overwinter and dig them up later. Either way, they're still good. And taste-wise, they've got this slightly sweet, nutty flavor, like a mix between a potato and a water chestnut. The best part? They spread like crazy. Once you plant them, you'll have them coming back year after year with zero effort. For a survival setup, that's pure gold. Food that regenerates without constant replanting. That's one of those plant once, eat forever crops every gardener dreams of. Now, moving on to the legend itself, cassava. If potatoes are the king of temperate climates, cassava is the ruler of the tropics. This root crop has literally fed entire nations through hard times. It's packed with starch, making it one of the most calorie-dense crops you can grow. It's also tough, drought-tolerant, heat-tolerant, and doesn't mind poor soil. Once it's planted, it just grows and grows. You can forget about it for months and still come back to a root big enough to feed a family. When harvested and properly processed, cassava turns into everything from flour to chips to traditional dishes across Africa, South America, and Asia. The shelf life is another huge plus. Dried or turned into flour, cassava can last for months, even years without spoiling. And that's why it's a survival staple in so many parts of the world. You grow it once, and you've got calories that'll stick with you no matter what's going on outside. Now, for people dealing with dry touch soil, here's your best friend: grain sorghum. If your weather laughs at you for planting anything delicate, plant sorghum. It's one of the most drought-tolerant grains on Earth. This stuff thrives where other crops just give up. It doesn't need fancy soil or constant watering. Nutritionally, it's solid, packed with carbs, a bit of protein, and fiber. A single cup gives you serious energy, which is exactly what you want from a survival grain. You can cook it like rice, grind it into flour, or even pop it like popcorn. And here's the thing about sorghum. It's not flashy, but it's dependable. When everything else fails, sorghum still stands tall, quietly doing its job. It's been feeding communities through droughts for centuries for a reason. So, think about that trio: Jerusalem artichoke for your lazy gardener days, cassava for your calorie insurance, and sorghum for when the weather just refuses to cooperate. That's how you build a garden that doesn't just survive, but it endures. All right, we're getting close to the end of the list, but these last two are just as powerful as the first ones, because sometimes it's not the flashiest crops that save you, it's the ones that quietly keep your pantry full.
Let's start with lima beans. Now, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about these, but hear me out. Lima beans are one of the most underrated calorie fillers you can grow. They don't get the attention they deserve, but they should. A single cup gives you over 200 calories, plus protein, fiber, and a good dose of iron. In a long-term food situation, that's exactly what you want: steady energy and slow-burning fuel that actually keeps you satisfied. They're also incredibly easy to preserve. You can dry them, can them, or freeze them, whatever works for you, and they'll hold their quality for months. Once dried, lima beans last almost indefinitely if you store them properly. And when you cook them, they've got this creamy, hearty texture that makes them feel like comfort food, even in the toughest times. They're also team players in your garden. They fix nitrogen in the soil, meaning they leave your garden better than they found it. And they're not demanding. You give them warmth, sun, and a bit of care, and they'll keep giving back. In a survival garden, that kind of reliability is priceless. And finally, let's talk about the humble turnip. People overlook this one way too often because they think of it as old-fashioned or bland. But turnips are a quiet win on every level. First of all, you get two crops in one. You've got the root itself, which is starchy, filling, and rich in vitamin C, and then you've got the greens on top, which are completely edible and loaded with iron, calcium, and fiber. So you're getting both your calories and your nutrients from the same plant. They grow fast too, one of the quickest in the bunch. You can go from seed to harvest in about 6 to 8 weeks, which is perfect if you need food quickly. And because they can handle cooler weather, you can plant them early in spring or late in the fall when other crops are slowing down. That means you're stretching your growing season and keeping your food supply steady. The flavor's versatile. You can mash them like potatoes, roast them for that sweet caramelized taste, or toss the greens into soups and stews. And if you ever grown a batch yourself, you know how satisfying it feels to pull a handful of fresh turnips out of the ground and realize that one plant just gave you 2 kinds of food. So between lima beans, your slow-burning calorie filler, and turnips, your fast-growing double-duty crop, you've got the perfect close to this list. They might not grab headlines like corn or potatoes, but they're dependable, nourishing, and built for real survival gardening. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most. Not just growing food that looks good, but growing food that keeps you going. Hey, quick reality check. About 93% of the people watching this right now aren't subscribed. Come on, y'all. We've been hanging out for a while now, learning about crops that could literally keep you alive, and you're still not part of the family? If you've learned even one new crop today, do me a favor. Hit that red subscribe button right below. It costs you nothing, but it helps this small channel grow in a big way. Plus, I post easy, budget-friendly gardening videos every single week. So go ahead, click it.